to KROSS BARZ, the podcast where we discuss interesting topics with alternative perspective. I'm your host, Big O, and we have with us.
Hey, I'm your co-host, J.Tanae in the house. Welcome to KROSS BARZ.
Hey, J.Tanae in the house.
In the
All right. J.Tanae in the
You know
house.
it.
Okay, so now we got a couple of interesting and very, as I like to say, some great topics. And first topic, well, let me just run some things out. The two topics, and if we got time, we got a third one too, some things we want to discuss. But in honor of January 15th, we're going to honor the late and great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Hey.
Absolutely.
That's my hand claps.
One of my most interesting quotes, and it's actually my favorite quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Is when he speaks about the measure of a man. And that's literally my favorite quote. I have it in my classrooms. I always had it, on walls and places, and anytime things get a little bit down, I think about this. It said the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of peace and tranquility, but where he stands in times of, turmoil and distress. So I kind of, freestyled it, a little bit. I didn't quote verbatim per se, but freestyled a little bit. But that's my favorite one. Some years ago, when the mall first opened in Washington D.C., his memorial, I took my children there. We took pictures.
That's amazing. I've been there. That thing is spiritual. I'm telling you, it's the energy.
Yeah.
Energy there. Go ahead. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, over time, my appreciation of Dr. King was, it has evolved. As I get older, I start appreciating different things about him. One of the things that I truly appreciated was when I turned 39, I actually looked at myself like, yo, you got to do more. Yeah. Because I'm like, in 39 years of life on this earth, he accomplished a lot. And you really got to think about it in that perspective. Like, 39 years. He didn't make 40.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He didn't make 40. And I'm 40 plus, and I'm still like, yikes.
Yeah.
What he accomplished by the time he turned 39. That was, amazing. And just thinking and reflecting, when I was younger, there was no such thing as MLK holiday. I remember listening to Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday song, and when that was one of the things that when his widow, the late Coretta Scott King, and as she was promoting and the family was promoting it to be a national holiday, it was, that song was one of the pushing, the foundations in my head, because, my mom who raised me always played it. And I was like, man, this is, pretty deep. But, over time, they only, only showed me like the March on Washington, the speech, and that part of
the basic stuff, the everyday.
But as I got older, I started learning the other part where I was like, ooh. I said, hold up. This man is different. From, I always tell people, look at Martin Luther King past 65, like 66 to 68. Yeah, you follow him. You'll see something different. It's totally different from the image that many people say.
Some people might not know. Like, what are some things that you saw that was different from what you normally, and then when you start researching? Because some people probably still don't know. Okay,
so for instance, he was talking about economic equality. So for instance, the march that prior to him being assassinated, he was organizing a poor people's march. And so he was trying to galvanize all the people that was disenfranchised economically and, trying to put down all barriers of race and anything and saying, no, we all are in the same boat economically. So let's kind of galvanize together and try to make sure we get our fair share.
Sure.
And so, when we start thinking about that, he was doing more things economically in the forefront. Now, on the back end, he always did things that was economic that's never put to the forefront. So I'm gonna give you some examples. Where people traveled all over the country to come to support a march or a protest or things of that nature.
Right.
He solicited Black bus companies.
Mm-hmm.
In the Civil Rights Museum in Greensboro, North Carolina, they showed you this thing called the Green Book, what they were calling similar to a Black Yellow Pages, and where you had to have a list of restaurants, hotels, different venues where you knew they were friendly towards people of color.
Right. Yeah.
So now just think about, you're in this list and where you have these people all the way from Maine and even Canada. From the Canadians all the way down to Florida and on the East Coast, and people going somewhere and they're utilizing this Black Book, or not Black Book, Green Book actually, and they're helping out these Black businesses because it was more of an economic thing. And that was one of his quotes as well, that after integration, he saw, what was happening, that he actually integrated Black people into a burning house. So many people thought, wait a minute, we can go into these neighborhoods, we can go into these restaurants, and we took down all these barriers, but we forgot our own economic value. Prior to integration, we had different businesses and different enterprises that was, homegrown and strictly, Black. And that's the portion where I started studying that. And I looked at it and I said, this is a topic or angle that many people haven't really touched upon. Every time I, go a little deeper, it always takes me to Tulsa, Oklahoma. It always takes me there, but that's a whole nother subject. I can go into that, but I'm trying to stay away and just keep it on Dr. King. And some of his accomplishments early on, outside of, just being a stalwart and leading the masses and always having a somewhat righteous standpoint. Because I say somewhat because all people have their faults. I remember challenging one of my professors. And I was like, when I found out, he may have done some extracurricular things. And she kind of got right on me and said, does that matter, as far as the movement? Does that take away from his accomplishment and moving us forward? And I was, because I was getting judgy, like, he did this over here. And it was like, no. Stop taking the focus over here, because that's what other people do. Think about what he accomplished here. His vision, his movement is much broader than his his
flaws,
mistakes as a husband and as a man. And I don't even like discussing it unless I know a person. Like, I'm not even going to try to put that energy out there or to celebrate him.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think of people purposes too. I mean, that was part of his purpose. Yes, he was a husband and a father and all of that, but part of his purpose was to make this happen. You know what I mean? He was supposed to do that. Today he would have been 91 years old. Today, if he would have still been alive, he would have been 91. If he would have still been alive. Just think of the things that would have happened. So you're right. There is two sides to the story. You know what I mean? But some people are here to do what they do and then they're out. You know what I mean? That's it. That's what they're for. Like you said, everybody has flaws. Everybody has things that they do wrong. But if you focus on that, you'll never move forward. If you focus on everything that's wrong. You know what I mean? People can, even doing, people can pull up stuff from your past, of the stuff that you may did a long time ago. You may have been a changed person. You know what I mean? When you know better, you do better. That's what I heard.
Okay. You know what I mean? Okay. When you know better, you do better. Yeah. But, listen, I'm gonna just be honest. that's one thing as I've evolved and got older. I never want to be popular. You know, in a sense, it's like I'd rather be wealthy and like
Right.
you don't know me, like that person, like who's that guy
Who
sitting
is
in the,
that? Who's that guy
on
with the
court
bald
side
head and the
at the
beard with
game?
his hat to the back? Who is he?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, but you know, now it's like, okay, I have a podcast, you know, I have some, you know, point of views. I think the point of views and the way that I think, you know, isn't really out there. So that's why I was like, hey, you know, I understand some popularity is needed, but I'd rather like, yo, I made some money. All right,
sometimes,
cool. And that's all right.
sometimes,
But
but
um
sometimes charisma, you know that sometimes charisma, sometimes people don't want to be popular, but it's your charisma, your personality, and it automatically just draws people to you. It's not that you are seeking popularity, but sometimes just your personality or just who you are or your persona, or some people say energy or your aura or whatever attracts people to you, which causes you to be, popular, and you may not want to be, but because of your gift or whatever your calling is, it attracts that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so sometimes people mean to do it and they seek it, but when it's natural, sometimes it just comes. And I think that's what Martin Luther King had, is he just had a natural thing that people, excuse me, where they came to him and they looked to him for certain things. And that's why he was able to take it so far.
yeah. And
Everybody couldn't have did it.
and yes, absolutely. And he was a gifted orator. And, you know, graduating from high school at 16, going to Morehouse
Sure.
University, at the time,
Mm-hmm.
Morehouse College, and then graduating from Morehouse College to go to Boston University,
Mm-hmm.
and receiving his doctorate.
Crazy.
There, he actually, one of my professors, Dr. We call him Dr. Mac, Dr. McLaughlin, at North Carolina A&T State University. He actually pledged Martin Luther King.
No.
Yeah, real talk. And he spoke of it. Yo, he kind of teared up because he was like, yeah, he had a swing void on Martin Luther King. And I'm looking at him like, hey, yo, fam, you actually swung on that man. You know what I mean? Like,
No.
but he teared up talking about, how significant a part that he played in his life. But Dr. Mack was stalwart at our university, a beloved professor as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to speak on some of the experiences that he had with Dr. King. And I thought, like, goodness gracious, like, that's one of the beauties of some of the our parents and our grandparents. That generation, they were a phenomenal generation.
Right.
I
Right.
think our generation, you and I, our generation, we kind of took the baton and said, look, we're going to be more economic based, and
Okay.
took hip hop, and now we actually have
Right.
more billionaires than we had before, but we
Right.
haven't moved the needle enough because
Right.
it's the same since time
Right.
of Reconstruction. So
Right.
we still got the percent of a percent of the wealth in this country. So
Yeah.
we got to do some
That's
things.
because we gotta. Well, that's off the topic. I'm gonna go there, but we gotta invest differently. You know what I'm
Absolutely,
saying? Instead of having the depreciating, you know what I'm saying, things, we need more assets that's gonna, build us up. That's part of the problem. But anyway, we're
absolutely,
gonna move. We're gonna move. But that's part of the problem. That's what happened. Because how you gonna make more money and have more billionaires and be still
yeah,
be in the
yeah,
bottom percentage of it all? Got to think
absolutely.
different. Got to think different. So with Martin Luther King, definitely he thought different. So what are some, facts, hidden facts that people may not know besides that? We know his name wasn't Martin
Okay.
Luther King Jr.
Well, some of the things that people didn't know, that his name was changed when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Michael, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It was Michael.
Michael. Yeah, it was Michael, and his father, was deeply moved about the Protestant Reformation and
Right.
changed his name.
Right.
Changed his name and his son, and he became Junior. So I
Right.
was like, wow, that was deep. I never
Yeah.
knew that until I got older.
Yeah.
Some of the other things is that after Dr. King was assassinated, his mother was targeted and she was killed as well.
No way. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Really?
They bombed his father's church, and they assassinated his mother.
I'm probably gonna feel embarrassed because I didn't know that part, but I'm probably not the only one that didn't know that
No, no,
part.
no, no,
But I
no,
didn't
no.
know
So
that. I
a
really
lot of
didn't.
people don't know a lot of the information that went along with Dr. King. Even like something that was um real important to me to allow people to know about, like the March on Washington. That
Mm-hmm.
was Dr. King was like more or less the popular face that was out front, but the person that was really behind that was A. Philip Randolph,
Okay.
the leader of the Porters Union.
You
So
said Porters?
the Porters Union. So you remember the Porters? These were the men and women
Yeah.
that were on the trains. So
Right.
similar, like how stewardess are in airplanes or
Yes.
stewards.
Mm-hmm.
It was same thing for trains, because that was like the modicum of transportation.
Right.
So when you look at, A. Philip Randolph, if you look at some of the previous pictures, you always see A. Philip Randolph, the very slim, tall, distinguished gentleman with the silver hair. He was always front and center. And Dr. King was somewhat to the side, because it was the Porters Union, and this was really the economic base of the movement per se. I
Cool.
always felt
Cool.
um, that Dr. King always brought attention to a situation, and because he brought attention to it, it had to become a priority. So it was like, okay, where I come, we're going to put the spotlight on it. So it was welcome. So it was like you saw different people or different leaders of organizations come together in a coalition.
Yeah.
And that's some of the best thing ever, because, you know, sometimes I feel like as people of color, we always got to be in charge, got to be the boss. We can't be a part of something,
No, yeah.
And you saw where Dr. King could come and be a part of
And bring
something,
everybody together.
and
Sure.
then history will reveal like he led it was more than just him. You know
Right,
what I mean?
sure. I mean, he
So
got
when you
the
see,
spotlight, but
yeah, when you see
you're
the
right.
spotlight. Another
You're right.
thing that people didn't know at the time, his church, Ebenezer Baptist Church down in Atlanta, Georgia,
Atlanta. Right.
um, they did not financially support Dr. King when he was doing these civic duties around the country. And what happened was, and it was justified, because I would have to think, like, put it in today's term. Your pastor is going around the country having speaking, and you're
Right.
asking me to put money into
Right.
the
And he
plate
not
for
here.
him doing all this stuff, and he ain't even here.
We're paying for his flights and his
Yeah.
hotels and his, but he ain't
So
breathing.
correct. So it's understandable, and I understood that. And I
Right.
said, yeah, it's deep. But this is the part where, while he's still living, and if anybody ever hears this, know that one of the persons, like, it's only like around 3 or 4 people I really want to meet. And like everybody else, like, I like your art, like your music, like your the acting, or I like, what you stand for, your books. But this person I really want to meet.
Mm.
And that's Harry Belafonte.
Ah, yeah.
Every time he speaks, it's like I sit there like this. Because what is it? The parable, old African parable. True knowledge begins at the feet of your elders, and it's
That's a
like,
fact. That's a
like
fact.
when he
Glean
starts
that
speaking,
wisdom when you can.
absolutely. So when Harry
Absolutely.
Belafonte starts speaking, I'm like, ooh, and I never realized, looking at a lot of those civil rights pictures um, and videos, that Harry Belafonte personally sponsored Dr. King
Personally,
and did not allow, and wasn't on a stage saying anything. Was like, look, whatever you need,
I'm
I
gonna
got
help
it.
you out.
Yeah,
I
like, yo,
agree.
your
Here
plane
you
ticket,
go. Yeah.
here you
Enough
go,
people
and
don't do
just
that. Enough people don't do that.
sponsoring that.
Right.
And I'm like, whoo, that's big. I mean, huge, enormous. So now when I looked at it, I was like, goodness gracious. Like
But he had
that.
to have the support of. I mean, I'm sure it was more than just Harry Belafonte too. There was probably more supporters That, I mean, they had to. Otherwise, how was he going to get around? The church is not supporting you. You had to have the backing of something, somebody, or a group of people. As much work as he done, it had to be more than just.
I don't think so. And the reason why is think of it in today's term. If if Al Sharpton had to rely on the and in no way I'm not casting any aspersions on Dr.
Right.
King or trying to make light of his accomplishments. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just comparing
Right.
the situations,
Mm-hmm.
right? Making sure I'm clear of that. So if Al Sharpton had to rely on the benefit of celebrities or people that was around him to move around and not have his Action Network in his own business or his nonprofits to actually move, so he can actually have an economic base. I don't think he would be able to touch as many places that he touches. I'm just being honest with you, because and the reason why I say this is because during King his last few years on Earth, he was one of the most hated men in America, and I want to say in the last 2 years they start calling Dr. King Uncle Tom. Many people don't know that because some of the younger people and some of them have expressed regret over time. And that's, respectable because they've seen that how wrong they were.
Right.
But at that time, they were calling him Uncle Tom because the younger generation, like people during the SNCC movement, they were more like, yo, we got to do something.
Right. They wanted to be, they didn't want to do the peace thing. They like, you can't keep sitting here. You can't keep, right. Understood.
Yeah. So they were different, but I don't want to make it seem like they were violent. I don't want to put that on because they were
but
not
everybody
violent.
should know that they had that issue, What I mean? Like we're not gonna keep staying here after a while. I mean, that's why every generation is different. There's some people that could have lived in that era, and there's some student people now that could have absolutely not lived in that era.
True. And so for Dr. King, for people to, his last few years on this earth to call him Uncle Tom, it was like, you know what? It's like I've heard some celebrities. I don't want to put anyone's name out there like that. But I heard some celebrities say, I make more money than another individual, so I'm better than them. And I kind of looked and was like,
money makes you better.
Real talk. Like, why should I listen to my teachers or why do I need to listen to them? Because I got more money and what could they teach me? I got more than them. I've heard this several times. And people sitting there like, okay. And I'm sitting there like watching it like, okay.
That doesn't mean a thing.
To me. Like for me, I'm like, yo, listen.
You can have all the money in the world and be a complete idiot.
Very true. But for me, I'm not going to allow somebody to say some clown stuff like that and be like, yo, nah, I'm going to put you right on the spot because there's never a time where I would look at someone, let's say like my grandfather, who I have all the respect in the world. I'm thankful he was in my life for some time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, I'm making more than my grandfather. What can he tell me? It's like, he gave me some of the best advice in the world and I was young. He didn't speak to me as a kid. So he telling me some of the hardest thing ever, at 7 or 8 years old. But nonetheless, so when you start looking at Dr. King and his accomplishments, and then you say, well, this is also look at it where some people didn't see him as some hero until later on, and then they start shaping his legacy. And that's giving all the credit in the world to his wife and his family by doing that. And also not highlighting any indiscrepancies that he may had in his life.
Right.
And I always respect it because, we love to start talking about that and make it so salacious. And like, no, let's keep it on a point. That man was ahead of his time. Ahead of his time, and he changed the world. And so many people have been inspired by his words. And then if you start looking at it, you could go to many websites. I remember typing up, it says 123 quotes of Dr. King, like his alone. I'm looking at it. I'm like,
the words, some of the stuff he said was like,
yeah. and when you
And
see
who
it,
thinks that? Like, how do you know? It's so much, it's so much wisdom in it. Be like, God, I wish I could have thought of that 40 years
it's
ago.
true.
I wish I
like,
could have.
like,
That makes
yeah,
so much sense. I wish I could have thought of that.
yeah. But and then you start looking at people's purpose, and you say, he had what is it? He have four children? Because I always get him and Malcolm mixed up. Because Malcolm had four daughters. It's like, nah, he had five children. I'm like, so now you just look at it and say, man, you have, like this many children,
Right.
and you're going to be out on the road. So, it gives much respect to his wife and his
Yeah. She
mother
did
and his
all
father.
that.
You know what I mean? Like, I got,
All
look, I
that.
got
Five
three children.
kids.
I got three kids, and I'm looking like, if I just had to leave, keep on going in and
I
out,
got a
and
dog.
then look, and your money might be a little funny.
I got a dog. Be like, who gonna walk? No, you walking. No, you gonna walk.
Nah,
No, I ain't
no,
walking if you
just think about it. Look,
walking. And you
I
got
got,
five kids. Right.
look, I got three. And if I'm leaving out the house and I'm saying, look, I got to speak at this place, I got to go to this place, I got to go to this place,
Right.
and you start looking at it and say, yeah, and then on top of that, your money ain't really right. You see what I'm saying? And being able to come home. And remember, he's married to a black woman. you know, like, I'm not saying like what a
What you
person do, but
say?
that's why I look at him differently. You know what I mean? As a man now, I say, yo, he
You can look
different.
at you can look at him different, but since you said that, I know we're talking about him, but the wife on the back, there's a certain kind of woman that a man like that needs.
Absolutely.
Everybody can't be your
They don't
wife.
make Corettas no
Everybody's
more.
not going to
They
deal with
stopped that
that.
model.
Everybody, exactly.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh
you
yeah, they
gotta
stopped that
have a
model.
certain type of person. Like
That's a classic.
musicians, some people can, everybody can't be married to a musician. Everybody can't be
Mm-mm.
married to an entrepreneur because
Mm-mm.
they don't want to go through the struggle of not having no money to build the business. So yeah, you gotta give her props on that. I'm sure she had her, moments where she wanted to punch him in the eye or whatever. That's just my
Non-violence. Hold on, but
interpretation.
yeah, you know what?
But
I
with
don't
five
know.
kids, I mean.
Yeah, because we always know that Martin was non-violent. I don't know about Coretta. They never said she might have popped somebody.
She might have
I'm
get him a
tired of talking to
1-2
you,
piece
Dexter.
and
I'm
then
tired
gave
of
him a
talking to
biscuit for
you.
real.
Look. I'm tired of talking to you, Dexter. Yolanda, didn't I tell you to do the dishes? Like, I don't know. She
Well,
might
your
have just
daddy
popped
come
somebody.
home, he ain't going out. He ain't going out on the road for a week.
I'm gonna tell my daddy when you get back. I could imagine it. I'm gonna tell my daddy you popped me, mama. Tell him. And I'm gonna give you something else to talk about. I could imagine the
Can you
type of
see the kids walking around with non-violent signs in the house? Mom, you can't hit me. Dad said be non-violent. We're
look,
protesting,
absolutely,
Mom. We're not gonna
absolutely.
eat if you're gonna beat us today.
Nah,
Okay, there we go, Bugs.
but with some of the other things that was so significant about his life, whereas when he came up to Harlem and he was the first attempt on his life.
Of the assassination, yes, the book
His
tells.
assassination attempt, and the woman stabbed him in his chest, and it was like this deranged woman. It was like,
Yeah.
as I was reading, I was like, I don't know if she was just deranged or she was a plant. And they had those people because during that time period, you had these people, and then all of a sudden they turned on almost like the Manchurian candidate. Like, all right, cool.
That's a
I
good
read the
movie.
book, and now I got to go kill this person because
Yeah,
these people were planted from the CIA and NSA, things of that nature. So that's
yeah.
why I was like, man. And then, now they have a
Hey,
documentary.
I'm gonna back up from that though. With that happened, and when he went to the hospital and got an X-ray,
Mhm.
he almost died. A tip, right there. And so that's when the whole speech that he got with, if I had a sneezed,
Sneezed, correct.
if I had
And
a
I
sneezed,
sneezed. It was like, thank
that's
God.
it.
Well, thank
I'd
God
have
you
been
didn't sneeze.
done if I would
Yeah,
have sneezed. Thank
he
God,
said that.
he got the letter from the young lady and whatever. I actually wrote a poem about that, and I performed that here at one of the HBCUs here in West Virginia State University. And Omega Psi Phi had a Martin Luther King celebration, and I wrote a piece, and it was called Sneeze Memoirs, and it talked about that. And, and I was pretty much just asking other people, like, what is your sneeze? What is that one thing that almost took you out of here that didn't? You know what I'm saying? To help you think about, oh, I could have been over here. What was your sneeze? Was it alcohol? Was it a car accident that could have killed you but didn't? So I kind of put it in that perspective, within the poem. And
A
it
woman
was,
or man?
right. Or woman, anything. Your sneeze could have been anything. It could be food. It could have gave you have a heart attack. It could have been, your sneeze. So you got to think about that. What is your sneeze? What could it have been? They could have almost took you out of here, but didn't. But you continue to live to fulfill your purpose. So you got to look at it in that perspective. Like that was his thing, but what's yours?
Oh, I can tell you something.
I got a couple. I think I had a code. I had a couple. You know what I mean? That almost could have.
Listen, let me tell you something real good.
Right.
I was young. Me and my friend Roddy Rod was actually walking, and he looked at this girl. I looked at her. We both liked her. My man Roddy Rod, rest in peace. He deceased. He died like maybe 7, 8 years ago. However,
Right.
I looked at the young lady. He looked at the young lady. She was looking. She started smiling. Ain't what young boys do. We both went over and spit game. It was like best man wins. So the next day, I'm like,
That's that
you
manhunt.
know what I mean? I'm like,
Right.
yo, because we were walking up to the park. It was the beginning of football season, and walking up to the park, and I'm like, man, where my man Ryan? By the house, he ain't there. You know what he did? He left a little early. He didn't want to compete, so he's sitting on a girl porch. I'm looking at him like, yo, that's foul. And he starts smiling, yeah, what up? I'm like, got that. I went on. He ended up having children with the young lady, and things ain't work out right for him.
Ooh, aren't you glad that you didn't get there
What?
first?
What? I'm gonna tell you something even funnier. I end up teaching a child. And I
Wow.
was sitting there
Full
looking at her,
circle.
and he was nuts.
Full circle.
And I
Wow.
was sitting there
And
looking like,
you don't
mm.
know things that you thought was for you is not for
And
you.
that right then and there, I said, see, God, look. I always like, look, is this good? Since that time, sometimes they tell me now, some of my friends look like, yo, you bugging. I be like, look, he tell me don't move. Like,
That's
I don't
right.
know. He said
Don't
me some things. I'm
better
like trying to
listen.
like,
Better
yeah,
be in tune.
yeah. So look. That was my sneeze. No, that's one of the sneezes I
For
went
sure. For
for sure.
sure.
Oh
That
no,
conscience.
that could have went bad. I definitely would be sitting here with you. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? J.Tanae.
yeah.
I wouldn't have met
I
the
get
likes
it.
of me.
I get
But
it. I so get
but
it.
that was one of the things. But that's point. Now, hold on now. So now
Sure.
when we start looking at because we can't, it's not enough time to try to speak about all of his life. But there's a documentary that came out, and it's
Mm-hmm.
MLK Jr., the FBI's The Dark Years, and
What's
that
that? What is
documentary.
that on Netflix or is it
Let me look that up.
Amazon?
MLK. Okay.
Yeah, after you do that, I got a couple of little things I want to know before we move on to whatever our next, to our next topic. I do want to. It's a couple quotes I want to read from him, the positive, so we can, end on the positive side of that. But go ahead. I would like to know. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Okay. So the Huffington Post says it's HBO's Martin Luther King film reveals his dark and dangerous final years. So it's really talking about the last 18 months of his life. And one of the big issues in that film is talking about the FBI because they had more wiretaps and everything. The FBI was sending notes to Coretta Scott King, asking for Dr. King to kill himself because it'd be such an embarrassment of certain things about his life would get out and it would assassinate and trying to assassinate his
Right.
character. And then you understand that this man was fighting for civil rights, civil justice, and this is all that he wanted. And if somebody else was of a different color, it was like you would want the same thing. You're doing this because this man is this particular color. And that's what it said, that the FBI's their dark years. Like, yeah, we were doing some subversive things to one of our own
Take
people,
them down. That's
you
terrible.
know. And
It's
even
still
how
happening.
his assassination happened, it was a coordinated event that people don't realize that, James Earl Ray, the person who was
Right.
convicted of assassination,
Yeah.
went to his death and said, look, I wasn't it. Even the children of Dr. King was trying to get James Earl Ray exonerated so some of the things could come out about the whole thing. It was the cover up. They were saying that he couldn't even been shot from the window.
Right.
So then when I started learning about that aspect, it made me upset. I'm just being honest with you,
Yeah.
because a lot of my research happened during my college years where some of my professors were challenging us to say, okay, come on, dig. Let's see what we come up with. And then I started realizing, like, analyze stuff from a perspective of, wait a minute, everything needs to match up. And the people that was told not to go patrol, the black officer in Memphis, has since came out, said, they told him to leave his post intentionally by the police officer, the police in charge in Memphis. So they were trying to make sure that he wasn't protected. And it was like, the hotel.
One
So it
man
was
got the whole world.
now watch this. The hotel that he was originally staying at, like, okay, we're going to take that reservation, and now you have to go to the Lorraine Hotel, which is not as heavily guarded.
Yeah.
And we could put him in a situation where this happen. But this is a coordinated effort with all these things happening. And that's beyond the capability of this one person or this lone shooter.
Right.
And then that's that's the caveat where people don't really want to know what our government really thinks of us. And I always speak on it. I say, if you look at the United States, the principles, the Constitution, I said, Black people, if you really look at it, we've been living in a state of fascism. And you could go to the dictionary and look it up, and people would look at the dictionary and they're probably going to say Benito Mussolini or Adolf Hitler. No, I'm going to help you out and dispel all of that. I tell little small students so they can understand. It's when the government doesn't respect its own laws or rules. When the government doesn't respect its own laws or rules, that's fascism. Murder was illegal in Germany, and
is that something that's happening now? No, I'm not going to say that out loud. Alrighty then.
So when you look at it and say that, okay, murder is illegal, however, we can murder these people and we're not going to say anything. Still happens to that.
Hey, you watch Scandal?
No. I'm not going. I got you.
I'm gonna move on, but that show right there make you think some, great. When I was like, I'm not gonna watch Scandal. When you watch Scandal and you talk about the back stuff that happened, man.
I don't want to, really revisit some of the things that Scandal.
They said movies depict life, right? Some of the things
because I believe our current president believes in that, and he's starting to think like, I think our election was rigged because Scandal rigged it.
No.
No. You have some idiots at high levels. We start to see that.
Well, that's one of the episodes in Scandal, but we can talk about that.
So I'm like, nah, I'm not even putting that out there. You don't know how that book will come back. So it's like, And so just looking at his life as a whole, I'm like, totally in awe. And as I get older and learn more tidbits about it, I'm probably one of many people that start looking at some of his lives. I remember earlier on when Michael Eric Dyson wrote a book, I may not get you there. And I was like kind of fascinated with how he kind of portrayed Dr. King and said, nah, it wasn't all pieces of cream, and this is things that were going on. I was like,
he's gonna be controversial. He gonna give it to you, bro. He gonna give you the good, the bad, make you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So
that's KROSS BARZ.
So when I actually read these things, I was like, huh, okay, this is pretty awesome. Besides just the quotes and some of the things that he was talking about, because he was seeing the realization of things. But it's scary now You know, it's scary now where some people can't even dream to the level extent of where we've been. And that's the bad part about
Wow.
immigration. Whereas,
Wow.
you know, we
That's
had our
wow.
own leagues. You know, we had our own leagues. You
That's
go
a good
into these
point.
communities, you had a doctor that was right up the street with you with a sign out, a veterinarian. I remember where I lived
Right.
in Plainfield, Mr. Johnson. Well, you know, my family is Johnsons, but um, Mr. Johnson, that was across the street from me, he was a veterinarian and he had a
Mm-hmm.
sign. So up till I got like maybe 10, you know, he took the sign, but he was a veterinarian right on my street. Dr. Bomar on 4th Street, you know, he was right down the street from Washington School. And some people
Yeah.
never knew that, like right in the community, you had these professionals there.
Sure.
Integration came. All right, cool. I'm gonna go next to JFK and have an office over there next to the hospital. Before you had to be in the community.
Right.
And that was our own little microcosm where we kept the black dollar. And then when
Right.
integration happened, you know, people got to drive to church. Back in the day, you used to walk to your church.
Right.
You know,
So
so like
there's the positives and negatives to to change. There's
absolutely. But
good sides and bad sides to change. So
and I think that when Dr. King started speaking about the Vietnam War, it was actually messing up a lot of money at a higher level. And then the people that were going, because it was disproportionately affecting black and brown people in the military. And
yeah.
this is one point
Right.
because my family member was there in Fayetteville, North Carolina, the largest Air Force, excuse me, not Air Force, but base that's in North Carolina, Fort Bragg.
Mm-hmm.
Fort Bragg, the day that Dr. King was assassinated, you know, they were saying that they were in ranks and everything. And then, you know, they gave the announcement of Dr. King being assassinated. And in the officers' lounge or barracks, you hear a whole bunch of cheering like somebody just hit the, you know, game winning run in a
Right.
World Series or something. You heard some cheering
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, we finally got him. And then
Right.
they made the announcement that Dr. King was assassinated. And you know, as soldiers, regardless of what's going on, you gotta maintain your fortitude
Sure.
or your you know saying your demeanor. And when they kind of dismiss, you know, it's like, oh, you know, like you got probably half of the men that was not half, but like say 40 to 30% was people of color. They all just was like, man, whatever. In
Devastated.
the
Yeah.
So they didn't even dismiss. They just, man, whatever, because they was just through with it. And what they had to do was they locked down the entire base because the morale was so horrible that they couldn't even be
Look, go with each
actually
other.
go
You
out.
about to have the
Look, they couldn't go out because there were areas in North Carolina that people started, you know, kind of starting the riots. Most of the riots happened in the Northeast. You know what I mean? Like, you know, most of them, you got Newark, Boston, some parts of New York,
Mhm.
Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC went crazy. Petey Green, you know, if you saw his movie
Yeah,
for
right.
all the stuff that was going on
Yeah,
in
the
DC,
radio, right.
Chicago, Detroit. However,
Those major cities
yeah,
where most of your
however,
brown people were.
correct. And there were places in North Carolina that was starting, so they was asking, you know, Fort Bragg, like, you'll send some soldiers here so they can patrol, and they couldn't because the morale was so bad on the base
Wow.
because of they're having this tension because they heard what in the officer barrack they were cheering
Right.
about Dr. King being assassinated, and then these cats is looking like this is our hero. And now it's
How
like, you
dare
want me to
you?
go protect, man, F you and whatever. And now they starting to look at each other. And so that's why they had to lock it down because it was like, yo, we got to get a handle on it before we have their own
Right.
little civil war in Fayetteville,
Right.
North Carolina.
Internally.
And this is one of those one of those little tidbits that no one speaks about. You know what I
Hey,
mean? Like,
that's why you
okay,
gotta read. That's why you
look,
gotta read.
now
Do
watch
your
this.
own research because they ain't gonna tell you everything in school.
No,
It's not.
give you some more little tidbits, right?
I got a couple. I got a couple quotes
Okay.
after
So now
yours.
look. So now one of the other tidbits was, I think it was 1966, where they used to have on your gun and rifle application, you had to have, well, I think they still have it on there, where it was race. You had to tell your race. I'm not sure if they took that off,
What did
but
that
I
have to
knew
do
back
with you
then.
buying a gun?
Yeah. So what they did was they polled 1,000 black registered gun owners and said, who is the one person that you look up to and that you most respect? And it was overwhelmingly over 90% of them said Martin Luther King Jr.
Who did the poll?
I'm not sure, but this is what one of the things that I looked at, and I was like,
Right.
wait a minute, how can they do the poll? You know what I mean? But that's how it goes.
So
Like,
that
okay,
again, that was a good thing and a bad thing. You was able to pull. Some people were like, people now you have the option to check black, white, or not at all.
Yeah. But that was the other thing, where the caveat, where a lot of people who never looked at some of these things and said, wait a minute,
maybe that
the gun owners respect this peaceful man too. Okay, if they able to put all these things together, he can get out of control. But go ahead with your things that you said about this shit that you had as well.
I mean, there's so many quotes, like you said. He has so many situations. It just reminded me, because for COVID, he says, we may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat. We're in the same boat now.
Same boat. Absolutely.
COVID put everybody in the same boat. I don't care if you had money or you didn't. If you got sick, whether you was a millionaire, it did. So that quote stands the test of time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's one of, but I know you were talking about education, and I know you're an educator. One of it says the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education. There you go.
Have that on
intelligence and character. So don't just be smart. Have some good character too.
That's tough.
That's great.
Remember, character. Listen, that's tough. Character is who you are when people are not looking.
When you're not looking.
Absolutely. That's tough.
Absolutely. Let me read one more. So many. This is a simple one. I remember this one. He just says, "A lie cannot lie."
A lie cannot lie.
A lie cannot lie.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
I'm sorry. A lie cannot live.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I've never heard that. A lie cannot live. Okay.
A lie cannot live.
Okay. A lie cannot live.
What do you get from that? What do you think of that fact? A lie cannot live.
Like most of the time, a liar gives a lie life. And remember, the truth always kills a lie. So as soon as the truth come out, hey, you know what I mean?
A lie cannot live.
Can't
think about so many people that live that they live a life of lies. They, especially nowadays with social media and all these things we have, you pretend that you have this great and it's going on, and then people really find out what you really about. You know what I mean? So I thought that was cool. A lie cannot live. Lie cannot live. All right. So but that's a couple. So that's just a few. I mean, I could go. I mean, the list is long. Of course, I can't memorize all of these, but it goes on and on and on and on.
Okay. All right.
Look,
so
this is a good one. I gotta say this one.
Okay.
There can be no deep disappointment when there is not deep love. There can be no deep disappointment when there is not deep love. I like that. To me, that brings, you can't hurt me if I don't love you. If I don't really, you can't really disappoint me if I don't love it. Then relationships can be on that. Some people love people so hard that you're just devastated. They can't deal with it. You know what I mean?
Because you can't be hurt if you don't really care for the person. They can't really hurt you.
It can't really hurt you.
Okay. I'll give you a couple that just know of it.
So you're trying to be fancy because you know it off the top of your head. You're nothing.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no, no. I make you feel better. I'll read something.
Go ahead.
I'll read it. Look, I'm gonna read right here.
Because you take
No
take
person
over
has a
Lola doesn't
right
mean nothing.
to rain on your dreams. So when you look at it, you say, no person has a right to rain on your dreams. I love that one.
That's great.
Only in the darkness can you see the stars.
In facts.
You know what I mean? And the last one I'll go because like I said, the ultimate measure of a man is where he's on. But a different one is I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hate is
So
heavy. Hate is heavy.
sometimes like
It's so much.
and the
I just
crazy
rather
part is
forget about it.
when I think of that quote, I think about Tyler Perry. I think of Tyler Perry. And
Why?
the crazy part is in one of his movies, I don't know which one. He stated Medea stated that you stated that there's people on earth walking around with burdens from people who are 6 feet under.
Yeah.
They're occupying time, they're occupying space in their mind, and these people are dead, gone, and buried, and they still have effect and a hold over people who are still
Right.
living today.
They
And I was
done.
like,
yes.
yikes. And I was like,
Yeah, that's
like
facts.
that was a
Why you
bar
keep
from
holding
Medea.
on to it?
Yeah, I said, whoa, that was tough. But like I said, one of the greatest men. I think many people said of the last century. I remember when the end of in year 2000, they were saying who was the greatest person of the 20th century, and it was almost like overwhelmingly everyone said, Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King.
Gandhi was up there.
Of course.
Mother Teresa was up there.
Yeah.
And this is from me just thinking about year 2000. Some artists they was up there. One of the ones that I didn't realize how much of a humanitarian he was Bob Dylan. I didn't realize how much. I never really followed him. He was before my time. However, I grew to respect him. I grew to respect Bob Dylan. I was like, man, he was a great humanitarian. One of the ones that was in my lifetime that I kind of respected because he said it on MTV. It was like, when it first started and they wouldn't play any black artists, David Bowie. David Bowie, and he was like, yo, why you got this guy and you're not playing black artists? And I was like, oh, David. It's one of those, Dave. Like, but Martin Luther King triumphed over all of them. And, everyone, as I felt like from all races and creed could appreciate his words, his sentiment, and what he stood for as a man. And that's why, we've taken over an hour to speak upon him. And,
I mean, you could go on and on and on.
He should have
like
his own class in every HBCU.
Right.
That's my personal opinion. Just actually dissecting, the process, the thought process of him, because I know that Drew University in New Jersey, the most expensive university in the state of New Jersey. Okay. Drew University has an entire course about Thomas Jefferson. And I was up there for a curriculum, workshop and, creating curriculum for the state. And it was crazy where I told them, I said, you talking about this guy and, he was a rapist, right? And the lady was like, I took the course, but he was so great and this and that. And I said, okay, well, tell me about OJ. Tell me about his exploit on the field without thinking about he's a murderer.
Right.
And she just looked, and I said, yeah, it's kind of hard to overlook that part. I said,
yeah.
Now,
but you just said earlier about Martin Luther King, though, about overlooking his, not overlooking it, but not goes all the way forever.
You don't want to delve in, but some things you can say, all right.
That's a little bit extreme.
As a man.
That crosses the boundary.
Yeah. Because I always said, this is my personal, not of KROSS BARZ, not J.Tanae. Nah, this is me. Just me.
This is Big O.
Big O only. Rape is the only unjustifiable offense. You could justify murder.
This gave me like little chills.
Look.
Just thinking about it. It's
Watch
terrible.
This. You can justify killing someone. You could look at somebody like, yo, he murdered my family and he was trying to get away and he wasn't coming quietly, so I had to kill him. You can justify that. You can justify beating somebody up. Like, he wouldn't stop. He couldn't stop moving, so I had to do something. You can justify almost everything. Okay? Like, yo, he stole this from me, so I had to steal it back because I had to eat and had to survive. You can justify.
Some people will try to justify rape.
No, there's no justification for
she
rape.
She said, yeah, I was there, and then you see it didn't.
Because remember, rape is without consent. So if you don't give
it
consent,
is. That's the
rape.
Definition. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So now watch this. You know, Thomas Jefferson giving.
But some people's perception, like, she did say, did she really? You knew.
Look, Thomas Jefferson held his own kids hostage from, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I read that whole little. Yeah, that's.
He said, if you don't come back to France, I'm gonna sell your kids off.
Sure enough.
So he was acting like it was a love affair, and it wasn't no love affair. Yo,
yeah,
you better.
I read that story.
Yeah, so it's like,
yeah,
knock it off.
We're not. But MLK, 91 years old, he would have been today. Absolutely. 91. So that means my grandmother's 95, and she was born. She'll be 1925. So, wow, 91. Imagine if we would have lived in that time.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Martin Luther King. Happy birthday. I'm glad we got Monday off. It's a long weekend. Thank you, Martin Luther King.
Absolutely. And there's still several states that don't, support the holiday. But I think if you're a person of color and you like, okay, y'all don't have to have it off. Before look, I'm taking one of my days. I'll let you look. I'm taking one of my days.
I got PTO.
You know what I mean? Like, if I was in one of those states, like, yeah, that day, I'm always taking. I'm sick on that day.
Always.
Always.
I feel like cough coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? But let's transition into our next topic. All right.
Okay, I'm cool with that.
Okay. What is the benefits? Because I think I don't know, if you want to share your story about COVID and your journey.
Sure.
And what could be some of the positives and negatives about taking the vaccine? Because in the Black community, for so many people that I've seen online, even in being conversations with several people, it's different. You know what I'm saying? It varies. You know what I mean? So one of my family members, they are they teach at a university, and they were speaking on, the reasons why you should take it and why they are taking it. And I'm like, huh? You great? And then actually having some friends, close friends that are medical doctors and surgeons. Yes. And they say why they're taking it.
Right.
And listen to some of our other friends that maybe in law enforcement or in technology engineers and things of that nature, and educators. They're saying why they won't take it or they're not going to take it. Yeah,
but you see what the difference is, though, for the people in the medical field, because I have a friend, she's in the medical field, and she's a nurse, and she took it, but as she's explaining it to me, she was, I understand it from the medical side. I understand about this. So she was more, because she has a medical background. Some of the things that I was worried about, you know what I mean? She was like, no, that's not true. This is what it is, because she's had that, she's been privy to some information because she knows. I mean, she's from that, that field. But, I haven't taken it. I had COVID. I didn't take it. I haven't taken it yet, and you still can. And they actually say, even if you have COVID, you still should take it. You know what I mean? Because some people have gotten it, they've gotten COVID more than once. It's not like you can get it one time, you can get it again, So, I'm sorry, go ahead. What you were saying about your friends and the COVID go ahead.
I actually heard that people who have it, it's like they could develop a strength, or strengthening your immune, so you may not get it, but they haven't done enough research to see that you can't get it again. So that's what it's saying. You can get it again, even if you had it. So they were looking at, as I say, a 90-day period after you were first diagnosed with it.
Yeah,
And
after
this,
90 days.
yeah, after
Yes.
90 days.
Because
And
for
this is
90 days, you can still test positive, even though you might not actually be infectious. You know what I mean? You can still test positive. So that's why a lot of people on the job, they say you have to be, at first it was like, you have to test negative before you come back. You have to test negative. Well, people were running out of PTO and their time off and sick leave because you're 28 days out, you 30 days out, and you're still testing positive. You
right.
know, you're not contagious anymore, but you're still testing positive. And so that's why CDC and all that came out with, as long as you have no symptoms, it's been over this time, then you're able to, because I didn't even want to go back to work. I'm like, am I contagious? Am I not contagious? I don't want to infect anybody else. That's not fun. But
what was the thing like that affected you the most? Like, was it your breathing? Was your eating? Your appetite went away? Headaches? What was something that was really not all of these things didn't affect you? I'm just saying, which one was the most prevalent per se?
mine was breathing. It was respiratory. It
Do
was
you have any
definitely respiratory.
ailments? Do
Well,
you have
I
any
have asthma. I have asthma.
Okay.
So that's why when they're talking about some of those preconditions, you know what I mean? It makes a difference. Me, my mom, my husband, my grandmother, we all had COVID. Everybody's symptoms were different. My husband had a cough. He had some aches, but he tested positive and he had some pains. I had like flu, like everything, headaches, fever. He had none of that, but he still, still tested positive. My mom lost her taste and her smell, whatever. My grandmother died.
Oh wow, sorry to hear about that.
She passed away. Again, she was 84, so you have some but everybody experienced it different. So for me, it was respiratory. I mean, I had pneumonia. I ended up with pneumonia and all of that in hospital and ICU and breathing machine, came home on oxygen. And I'm in, like you said, I'm in my 40s. Who would ever thought that I would be on oxygen, because my oxygen levels were too low and I had to stay on it. And it was insane. So for me, it was the breathing. That was my thing. I didn't get the no taste and smell and all of that. I mean, the fever and stuff was there, but for me, it was the breathing, and that was the scariest because when you can't breathe, you don't really think about eating and breathing. When you eat, you just eat.
Yeah.
But when I was eating, my oxygen levels are going down because I'm not consciously breathing. So you breathe without thinking about it. So as I was eating, I'm like, why am I? So I had to stop eating and concentrate to breathe so that the oxygen levels would go back up again. You don't think about stuff like that. You just eat. So it was things like that, you don't think about breathing and taking the time and get a real solid breathing for your brain, for your, all of that, so that, that was my thing. And everybody experiences it so different, but the pre-existing conditions make a difference. They really, really do. So though people who are y'all smoking and all of that, and even though you get COVID and you keep on smoking, and you catch COVID, it's respiratory.
Uh,
Cannot breathe. I had a CPAP machine. I had, this thing on my face and all of that. But
mm,
they did give me antibodies. So they do ask people who have had COVID if they want to donate their plasma. So while I was in the hospital, I got plasma for 5 days, in addition to this other, I can't even say the word. I'm gonna have to put it in the type it in or something when I do it. Whatever the name was for 5 days. And that was supposed to help your immune system, kind of build back up. Nobody knows for sure. These were all, but they're saying that the people that had taken it seemed to turn out better. You know what
okay.
I'm saying? So I'd taken that for 5 days. I received plasma for these other people. Thank you, whoever gave me your plasma. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, it took a couple months, for me to get back to where I needed to be. But, it's crazy.
Yeah, I can understand that. And some of the people that I spoke with, like 3 doctors and 2 nurses, they all said because of what's going on around them and because of how much exposure
Right.
they
True.
had, they were like, they all consensus was like, I'm taking it. Only
Right.
one
Yeah, the
person,
exposure.
one
Absolutely.
relative that's is a nurse, and she was like, she's still on the fence, but she's kind of leaning like, yeah, I kind of want to take it because, you know what I'm saying, she thinks she had it already, even though she tested negative, and she has to get
Right.
tested on a weekly basis because of where she
Right.
works. And
Sure.
I was like, what? And so one of my close friends, he actually stated like, yo, he's seen one of his colleagues, just like basically, around the same age as we are. And he was like, yo, he deteriorated to nothing and passed away. And so now it's like, huh? Wait a minute, he's healthy,
Young
doctor
people.
and everything. And now because in the area he is, it's like so many people's getting inundated. So like if you look at what's going on in California, people don't know.
Oh yeah, they got
People,
the highest rate. California does.
they say right now, if you're in that California area, you drop it like facts. And now, so now
Yeah.
you seeing all this around you, you kind of have these.
It was like 5 states, dude. There, and Georgia's in that was in that number too. Go ahead.
But you have these exhortations of saying, you know what, I'm not going to take it. It's like, okay, wait till you start seeing so many people around you drop. Yeah, you're
Man,
gonna be like, yo, give me anything so that
man, listen.
yeah.
When I was in the hospital, I'm in my room and you could hear people, in pain and worse off than you are. And I remember going down the corridor when they, took me, on a step down. And you know how they usually, when you're sick and they have your IVs and they have them inside your room and they're on the bag, on the stem and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because of COVID and it's a COVID-4, every time a nurse comes into your room, they have to change their clothes, their little thing that they put on, whatever the thing is, the little, the outfit, the gown.
Scrubs or gown.
Not the
Yeah.
scrub, the gown. Every time they enter your room, they have to put on a new gown and new gloves every single time. So instead of where I was at, having them to come in your room to check your bag so often, all these IV bags were down the corridor. So when you look down the hospital floor, all you saw was IV bags. It was barely enough space to get a bed through because both sides of the hallway had IV bags all the way down. And that just stuck in my mind. And I'm looking like, and they had to move them to the side to bring me through on the bed. And I'm like, because it was, the risk from them going in and out so much, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm like, did you change my? Oh yeah, we doing everything outside. When they changed your bags and everything. And I'm like, yeah, we gave you your file. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't fathom it. But now I'm more on the fence of, considering it because of some of the people that I spoke to, and also looking at the CDC because they have some things that they were saying, and I don't want to dismiss or discount that our government have not quite treated us, as colored people, fair in the past. There is documentaries about the Tuskegee experiment.
That's what I was about to say.
There is documentaries about, okay, they're going to give you something. And then they also speak about how, this COVID vaccine affects people of color and the more melanin you have in your skin. So meaning if you're darker skin, so it affect a person lighter than a person darker.
Right.
So I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That
a
kind of
nurse said that to me in the hospital. I got offended. He's like, I don't know why it's, your African Americans are getting it more than anybody. And when he said it, I was like, I got offended. Like, what the?
They getting the vaccine or getting COVID?
No, COVID and dying from it.
Right.
You know
Absolutely.
What I mean? But I got offended when he said it. I'm like, don't tell me that. You know what I mean? But I know there's some reason because we have a lot. It's not just us. And I was thinking like you think conspiracy theory. Are they just saying that statistics to make you think? Because there's a whole lot of people that, West Virginia is not predominantly black. And there's a whole lot of people who died, and they're of another color. But
true. But what's happening is that if you look at our health tendencies and things that are in our communities, we have a higher rate of obesity.
Sure.
We have a higher rate disproportionate towards diabetes.
And
okay, so
that's
now
what we eat. We don't have to, but it's what we choose to do.
Yeah,
so
I remember.
Have to be.
I remember a comedian says over 10 years, maybe 20 years ago, she's like, sugar diabetes running my family. No, fried chicken and cornbread and macaroni and cheese running your family. Like, no, sugar
Right,
diabetes doesn't.
right.
You know,
Rolls and
that food
cornbread.
that you eat runs in. Like, yeah, my grandma got it, my granddaddy, my
Pork
aunt got it,
chops.
isn't it? And it's like, yeah, because y'all eating the same type of food. So now we kind of understand, just like some of the
Right.
Greek philosophers, let thy food be thy medicine. You know, so now we have quite a few people are preaching, you know, vegan lifestyle, a more
Yeah.
holistic
Yeah.
or even Mediterranean type lifestyle of
Right.
eating.
Right. But Mediterranean, you gotta watch. They got a lot of oil, which is still not good for you and can cause cancer. So
Very true.
moving right
But
along. Moving right along.
it's, it's, it's better than what I've been doing. You know, like
Yeah,
I
true
haven't
indeed.
eaten pork in over 20 years. However, I smell pork now and I get nauseous. My daughter, she came back to me. One of my daughters came back to me. And the reason why, because her iron levels were so low. And I was like, look, you're going to have to get that up until you get a little older.
Right,
Because,
gotta get some protein in
yeah,
you.
you got to
Yeah,
have this protein. Look, I understand.
right. Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up,
Jaden, what's his name? Jaden Smith.
okay. So the reason why I bring that up is because, you know, she used to say, like, when she smelled meat and was like, ew, that just stinks. Because if you don't have it for a long time and it's not really productive for you, it stinks.
Right,
But if you smell it and you're used to it, it smells good.
right.
So
That's
for
true.
me,
That's a fact. That is true.
yeah, so for
Yeah,
me,
that is true.
like for
Yeah,
5 years, I was pescatarian. Like
right.
I didn't eat any meat, dairy,
Just fish,
anything except
seafood.
for fish. That was my only protein that I would touch. And I did it because my weight was jumping too high every year when I got my physical, my yearly
Mm,
exam. It's like I went from, you know, 190 to 109 to 119 to 120, 129 or 230. Then I was at 242. Then I was at
right.
255. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, we gotta work on that. I gotta
okay.
work on that. So
Look.
I'm
I'm
looking
sitting
at
here like in a couple of years, I'm gonna be 300 pounds. Like there's no way in the world I should be able to carry 300 pounds.
300
And
pounds.
even where I'm at now,
Nobody
you
can
know,
really
I
carry
want to talk about it
300
because I'm doing something weight.
pounds.
You know, I look at myself like when some people say like, man, you don't look that heavy. And I was like, I don't care what I look. I know what I am when
I know what I
I get on that
feel, and I
scale.
know what I right.
And I know I
Definitely,
need to be
for
way
sure.
lower than this. So I have
Yeah,
to start, you know, managing what I eat and control
right,
myself.
right.
But I also know that, you know, COVID has me more or less looking at my health because when I saw so many 40-year-olds passing, you know,
Facts.
because you know, you look at your demographics or people, you know, because
Right.
the past 2 years, that's why, you know, 2019 and 2020 was so horrible because you're looking like,
Right.
oh, look, Debo died. Like that was me. I said, Debo, hold up.
Mm-hmm.
Debo died? Nah, this is crazy. And
Yeah,
then,
Debo.
nah, you know, Tiny Lister. I apologize.
No, I know, I know, I
But
know.
it was like, damn, like he wasn't that old, was he? And then I'm thinking about this, like, okay, this person passed, this person passed, this person passed. It's like they're not that old. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's
yeah.
tighten this up.
Like 50s.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not old.
You said 50s. I'm like
Early
40s.
60s. That's not
Look,
old.
the little singing boy in Atlanta, Jeremiah, you know, he was on the rack for a minute. And I know
Yeah,
he way younger than me.
yeah.
So when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, let's tighten this up. Start doing little crunches, getting, you know,
Right.
then
Little
doing little
extra
push-ups,
walks.
walking in the neighborhood. I
I
said,
think
oh,
everybody can improve on that.
yeah, and that's
Look, America could improve. That's not just that's an America thing. We got a lot of obese people in America. That's an
absolutely.
America thing. But with COVID-19, it's hitting America, it's hitting the world. You know what I mean? But some questions that people are asking about, getting the vaccine for COVID-19, I've heard, okay, it's going to affect my DNA. And I've seen these little things that's come up in my Facebook Messenger or whatever saying, it's going to alter your DNA later and all that. So if you go to the CDC and you look it up, will COVID alter my DNA? And it says no. COVID-19, the mRNA vaccines do not change or interact with your DNA in any way. But in the little documentary or the little thing that I saw with the lady, the way she was explaining it, made it seem really like at some point it takes like a chromosome out, or it takes like a little piece of it out, and that it will change your DNA. You know, and I'm so serious. I wish I could pull it up and play the video. I might find it when we when we edit this thing and put it in there. But what they're saying is the RNA vaccines, also called mRNA vaccines, are the first COVID-19 vaccines authorized for use in the United States. And they teach our cells how to make a protein that triggers an immune response. So this vaccine is like the teacher for your cells to tell them, hey, you need to work, you need to resist what this is. So the mRNA from a COVID-19 vaccine never enters the nucleus of the cell. And that's where our DNA is. Our DNA is in the nucleus of the cell. This means that the mRNA cannot affect or interact with our DNA in any way. Instead, the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines work with the body's natural defenses to safely develop immunity to the disease, to COVID-19. And so it's like they're supposed to, push your body into making this thing. But I'm telling you, when I read that thing, it was saying that it will alter your DNA. And this was a nurse who had put this out and was like, I'm going to say this. I know they don't want me to say this because I'm a nurse and I know this information. CDC saying no. So, to a lot of people, CDC is law, it's Bible, it's word. So when you're taking this vaccine, but you got to think about all the other vaccines, tuberculosis, all these other vaccines throughout time. You have to have something.
True. However, when you
but I don't want you to alter my DNA. According to this, a COVID-19 vaccine alter my DNA? According to CDC, it says no.
Okay. Right. So now the other part is that look at the other vaccines where it took much longer. And one of my sources, they actually explained the reason why they were able to get the vaccine for COVID-19 was COVID is really a form similar or offshoot of the SARS situation that was going on.
Yeah.
So when they were developing, a vaccine for SARS and then COVID came, it was like, oh, we already on this. So we could just adjust. So it actually went back deeper and I felt a little bit better because I was like, yo, fam, they look like they just put this together.
Because it didn't work for that. Yeah, some things didn't work for the SARS, so they like, well, maybe it'll work for this because it's a different strand, for different,
Correct.
When we had to do our little thing on that when we were doing contact tracing, this, training that I had to do. But so what do you think about it? What do you think about? Would you be willing to take it or no?
Like I said, I'm still on the fence. I'm still on the fence, and the reason why is because I'm seeing the need or saying, okay, it may be beneficial, but also I'm like, what is the long-term effects? Because
nobody knows.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to put something in my body and says, okay, this is going to block this from getting in your cells or you from getting it. However, it's like, okay, now what if that turns into cancer in like 10 years?
Right. Well, people were paid to do it. People were paid.
No, yes, people were paid. I know of
I will pay you.
A family friend.
It was like $500 or like $200. You gonna have to pay me more than $500, even $1,000 to take this vaccine. I need some life insurance policy added on to it.
A family friend was actually doing this, and they were getting something like $200 to $100 to take experimental stuff. And I'm sitting here like, that is definitely not enough money.
No.
Not enough money. And I'm sitting there like, yo, hold up. You a little older than me, and you trying to do this. Your immune system ain't, when you're 20, you know what I'm saying? Your immune system is on fleek. I said, you get 40, 50.
But all these mugs now with these pills and popping, their immune systems might not be that good.
Oh, no, man. And the reason why I think
and the lean and the mollies and the everything else.
Listen, I think they might be way more advanced because why we interact with too many people from different cultures. And then on top of that, you start thinking about how wild the 80s and 90s were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you start looking like, Hold on. Yeah. You know, yeah. Look,
Like
people used to be blood
was
brothers
Freak
and
Meek
sisters.
in it? Yeah, Freak Meek was in the night. Yeah, he got a whole
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can tell you the good ones. Yeah, 94 was one of the good years.
94.
96 was a good year. 95 wasn't all that. I'm telling you, I can tell you the years was, but all I'm
Right.
saying to you is that some wild stuff was going on. And we was we was younger. It's like, yeah, you gonna be my blood brother and sister. Y'all was pricking
Yeah,
fingers.
sharing blood.
You do that right now, man.
No.
You just run die.
Mm-mm. You know how this has affected me, and I know we're talking about how we feel with the vaccine and all of that, but since we have to wear masks and things like that, like when I watch movies now, I'd be like, oh, he touched his hand, oh, he sneezed. Like, do you do that? It's like I'm watching it and I'm like, he just touched his hand. He didn't even have no. So I'm looking at movies and commercials like we can't do that anymore. So we will never go back to that.
I, listen, what I said this to a colleague, right? We had to write down somebody you respect. This was back in 2019. All right. Matter of fact, it was like 2018, 19, before the whole shutdown and 2019 happened. It's like 2018, 2019. And they said, write down something you respect of one of your colleagues. And one of my particular colleagues, they would shake the hands of all the students that entered their classroom. And I stopped doing that my first year of being an educator because I kept on getting sniffles and everything. And one of the veteran teachers was like, "Yeah, you keep on getting sick because you're shaking these hands. These kids is nasty."
Yeah,
And I was like, "Huh?"
right.
He's like,
Don't
"Yeah, I
think
know you
about
got the
it.
door, but." He said, "You're gonna have to figure something out. Give him a head nod." I was like, "So I actually
Look,
followed this
elbow, fist
little
bump,
elbow something. I get pounds." I said, "I went from handshakes to pounds and to
pound.
head nods now. Like I'm much older. Shit, and what's going on? You know, get in
Head
there, get
nod.
to the do now." But but
Even the
I
girls had to give you a head nod.
head nods. So
Mr.
what I
Long
did was
here.
I wrote down um how much I admire and respect because it was so brave that she was still giving out handshakes. And he was like, "Oh, that's thing," but this is before all the stuff really hit the fan. And then everything hit the fan, and I'm like, if we come back and that bitch still shaking
Right.
hands, I'm gonna look at her like she
Yeah.
crazy, like yo, because I'm just being honest. I don't even remember the last that. Just think about this. Last time you shook someone's hand.
Yeah. No. So I'm saying, so when I see it in movies and I see it on stuff, it makes you, it's weird how it affects you. It's not, it's psychological.
But look, this is the other part. I say, man, I'm glad I'm married, but I'm like, you walk in the store, you go places, you can't even see if somebody's smiling.
No, somebody spoke to me and they were like, and I had no idea who they were because they had the mask on.
Yeah.
You couldn't see them. I didn't even know who they were.
Yeah. Listen, I spoke to my wife, one of her friends, and her little social group she has, and she started walking up on me, and I knew when she was walking up on me, but I almost fell right into the cheese little aisle and the cookie and the doughs and stuff. Because as she walked around, she's looking at my face like this because she's trying to figure out without asking me like, "Who
Right.
are you?" And I'm like, "Well,
Right.
just ask me." I tell you, you just step back.
It's
Like, I don't
weird.
want to. I
But
don't
you
want to
better
be
put the
rude, but
mask
look,
on.
I'm such and such husband. You know, yeah, that's about you. And she was looking like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there like,
Yeah, it's
come
weird.
back up. You
Yeah,
know what
it
I
was
mean?
somebody I worked with, and they wore theirs so much I didn't know what their face looked like. They had just started working, and I never saw them without the mask because they wore the mask all day. And when they finally took it off, I was like, "You got a beard?" Like you didn't even I didn't even know they had a beard, mustache, or nothing because he always kept it on. It's
So,
like,
so
yeah, I was like, I didn't know
look,
you looked like that.
but now what I think about, look, this is how alternate my brain thinking. What if you're a person and you got a mouthful of diamonds or gold teeth, and now it's like you got a
It's
mask on, you
worthless.
can't even show that off.
You know what it's a
I
good
look
thing
like
for?
this. Like, nah, play. You know
It's
what I
good
mean?
for the ladies with the chin hairs. You know what I'm saying? You wear a mask.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? You
I,
can't see the chin hairs now. Shout out to my ladies with chin hairs. I'm just saying.
oh,
You
look,
got the
what
mask on
what if you got the what if you got the
or
jacked up jack o' lantern
mustache
mouth? You got the jack o' lantern mouth going on.
and you take it off. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
you like, oh, she looks. Oh God, like you know what I mean? It's like okay, you start to see like hide some things. So, but me, I'm like,
COVID-19
good,
mystery.
but
That's a whole
but
nother COVID-19 mysteries. All right, you got anything else with COVID-19 as far as the vaccine, your
no,
fun?
no, like it's just
And then we
some
could,
of the
say a
things
few
like
more things about it, and
yeah, because right there on the homepage of the CDC, it has COVID-19 vaccination will help you keep from getting COVID-19. COVID vaccination is safe and well to help build protection. And it has some bullet points on there. It also says COVID-19 vaccination will be an important tool to help stop the pandemic. So now we're saying that it can help stop it. And there's some bullet points. I don't want to read all that because you can
right,
go on your own to
yeah,
the
CDC.
CDC.gov
.gov,
got
yes,
Gov, and you can just get it. It has some facts, different vaccines, ensuring safety of vaccines, how ensuring how vaccines work, or how does COVID spread, prevent getting sick. So you can read that for yourself,
right. But
and
get educated, definitely.
get educated as possible. Make sure you don't spread any misinformation. If you're unsure, say you're not sure.
Right.
You don't want to say, "Hey man, if you take COVID, you turn into a reptile." You're like, nah, nobody said that. You know what I mean? You're just saying, look, there's some precautions and there's things out there that we do not
Right.
know about. But
Even if you've already had COVID,
even if
still
you
do
already had
what you
COVID,
have to
we're saying
do.
you can catch it again.
I had a guy like, I
Um,
already had COVID. I'm not worried about it.
yeah,
Okay, I won't
okay.
be around you, sir.
Yeah, now watch this. You had it, you catch it again, and you might not survive the second time.
You might not. I tell you that. I don't want it again. I tell you
Yeah.
that. I
Now,
stay in the house. No,
yeah,
no, 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 no,
yeah.
no, no,
So
no.
look, you get your groceries delivered to you.
I sure do. Instacart. Hello. Thank you very much. I'll give you a nice tip.
Look,
What? Instacart? Sure. Instacart has become my best friend.
absolutely.
You just got to make sure you check your receipts though, because sometimes they be missing a couple of little things. But I
Okay.
got them. But yes,
And now watch this. The other part is that because of COVID, there's professions that's actually becoming obsolete.
yeah,
Like think about it. Remember, we were just talking about the last episode or how in the last decade some things came on, like Uber. It almost took
right.
over the taxis.
Taxi
Like there's
cabs, yeah.
almost taxis. What was it? Not bad. What is it? Kind of house. What is that company called? You could go Airbnb.
Oh, Airbnb,
Airbnb,
yeah,
yeah, Airbnb. Hotels is filling it. They be like, yeah,
right,
look, everybody doing Airbnb. Hotels is filling it. But
right,
now with COVID, shit, who's Ubering? There's some people still doing Uber, but I'm like, you want to sit
yeah,
in those cars? You know what I
yeah. But
mean? Like,
even the Ubers though, I think they've because I catch Uber here and there, and they've even like the pools. Ubers used to have more pools, where if you
mm,
pool with somebody and go somewhere, that your fare would be less.
yeah,
You know what I mean? They're not really doing a lot of pools. I know where I'm from, where we are, they're not doing a lot of pools. So you're not in the car with a bunch of people. You know what I mean? They have, some cars have like the sanitizers in them. They get out, wipe them down. They have hand sanitizer, glove. One dude even had extra masks in his car. You know what I mean? If you're gonna get in my ride, this is what it is. But yeah, a whole lot of things have changed.
absolutely. So that's why I was like, man, it's tough, whereas our businesses are changing and we're trying to learn how to adapt. Now, the good part is that some businesses may not go back out of virtual. They're seeing that, look, people can get their
It
work done from
works.
home.
Yeah,
And I
it
don't
works.
need a brick and mortar.
Right,
We can get it done, from virtual place. Just make sure you secure it. And it's like, all right, so
right.
we're in a
The
rule,
positive side of COVID.
yeah, we're in a new revolution, and you have to see some of those tidbits and those things.
Yeah.
But we have to shut it down because me and you can keep on
Yeah,
going.
we keep going forever.
Look, I'm
But
looking at
yeah,
you. We're gonna say that
yeah.
last topic for the next time. All right. I see you. You was like this.
No, but you know what I'm saying? The good and bad of COVID. You know what I mean? I think we would never go back to what it was. It's not even going to be a new normal. It's just going to be, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Some things won't go back, and I'm glad they won't go back for some things. But you know, it's just, I'm glad I was born when I was born, and I got to experience all those things, prom, school, college, going out, having fun, clubs, concerts, you know, and a lot of people right now, they're not going to be able to
Proms,
experience that. So thanks, Mom, for not,
proms.
for me being born in time, you know, where I'm born. Some people are not going to get that. So anything, last thing you want to say before we go out? That's my thing I wanted to say. Glad I was born. I was born. I got to experience life,
No, that's crazy.
pre-COVID.
I didn't think
What you got
about
to
that.
say? Last thing
No
before
more.
we roll out.
Like,
What you got?
COVID got rid of proms.
Yeah, proms, graduations.
Graduations are virtual now. That was just whack.
Yeah,
Oh my God, no proms. Oh my God, concerts.
concerts.
Oh
You
man.
got virtual concerts.
You
Glad
don't
I'm
think
born when
concerts will
I was
come back?
born. Yeah.
It's a wrap for concerts. No more concerts ever.
Oh. I mean,
So
events. I
this
mean, they still
this
have them now, but they're all spaced out. You know.
yeah. So now we living in wow. This is like an
Think about
introvert.
movies. Movies, it's gonna go back to drive-ins because you can't go to the movies. You know how much
Facts. I told my
drive-ins?
wife that last year.
Hey,
I was like, yo, drive-in's gonna make a comeback. Crazy comeback. But think
yeah.
about this. We're talking about this is like an introvert's wet dream. Like, I don't have to talk to people. Like if you're an introvert, you be like,
You're
yes.
loving COVID. You got to go
But if you're an
outside.
extrovert, you like, yo, I gotta do something. Some people who are so social and they want to be out
Right.
and everything. And the extroverts is hurting, but the introverts, well,
Yeah. Well, extroverts are learning to be introverts because all your extroversion probably got you in trouble anyway. So could be. You never know. That's
okay,
all I
all
got.
right.
Oh, I'm so glad we did this show. Cross bars in the building. We coming back. It's episode 4. We coming hard, y'all. But we're coming back. So I enjoy myself. So this is J.Tanae. I'm signing out for Cross Bars. Please tune in the next time. And you are who?
Big O, the biggest of the O's. Oh. All right. And absolutely. So we'll see you next time on Crossbar.
See
Out.
you next time. Peace.